Commander Zephix's 6 eyes dilated in horror as the emergency klaxons shrieked through the bridge of the Galactic Council's finest dreadnought. The massive viewing screen displayed what should have been impossible: a fleet of unknown vessels emerging from hyperspace jumps that defied every known law of physics. "Report." Zephix's voice cracked, his usually pristine blue scales now pale with fear. The bridge crew of various species scrambled at their stations, their panic evident in the chaotic mixture of clicking, chirping, and electronic beeping. Sub-Commander Krill, a mantis-like being from the Kepler system, looked up from her scanner with all 4 arms trembling. "Sir, the readings are unprecedented. These vessels are constructed from materials we've never encountered. Their energy signatures are off our charts." 3 cycles ago, the Galactic Council had made what they believed was a routine decision. The planet designated as Sol 3, inhabited by a species called humans, had been marked for immediate annexation. Intelligence reports suggested a primitive civilization barely capable of rudimentary spaceflight. The Council's massive armada of 12,000 ships had been assembled not for conquest, but for what they assumed would be a simple collection operation. The plan was flawless, or so they thought. The humans would be given a choice: serve as a labor force for the expanding galactic empire or face extinction. It was a decision the Council had made thousands of times before with countless other species across the galaxy. None had ever posed a threat to their overwhelming technological superiority. Admiral Vorthon, the campaign's architect, had even joked about it during the pre-invasion briefing. "We're sending an armada to collect house pets," he had laughed, his crystalline form shimmering with amusement. The assembled commanders had joined in the laughter, confident in their assessment. But something had gone terribly wrong. The initial probe sent to Earth 3 rotations earlier had returned with troubling data. The humans weren't just building spacecraft. They were building weapons. Weapons that seemed to violate several principles of safe engineering that every civilized species had agreed upon millennia ago. The probe's data showed humans testing nuclear devices, chemical weapons, and conducting what appeared to be biological warfare experiments. "Impossible," Admiral Vorthon had declared. "No species develops such destructive tendencies without destroying themselves first. The data must be corrupted." The Council had proceeded with their plans, dismissing the probe's findings as equipment malfunction. After all, their psychological profiles of primitive species had never been wrong before. Aggression was always paired with stupidity, and stupidity led to self-destruction long before any real threat could develop. Now, as the human fleet materialized around them, Commander Zephix realized just how catastrophically wrong they had been. The human ships were unlike anything in the galactic database. Where Council vessels were elegant, curved, and designed for efficiency and beauty, these human craft looked like they had been forged in the heart of a dying star. Angular, aggressive, and covered in what appeared to be weapon systems, they resembled instruments of war rather than vehicles of exploration. "How many ships?" Zephix demanded, trying to maintain composure as his crew worked frantically around him. "Scanning shows approximately 8,000 vessels, sir," Krill reported, her voice barely a whisper. "But sir, there's something else. The energy readings from their engines. They're using controlled fusion reactions as propulsion, and their weapons." She paused, checking her readings again as if unable to believe them. They appeared to be firing solid projectiles at relativistic speeds. Zephix felt his heart skip a beat. Kinetic weapons were banned by every civilized species in the galaxy. The raw destructive power was considered barbaric, unnecessary when precise energy weapons could disable an enemy without the catastrophic collateral damage that solid projectiles caused. The communication array crackled to life, and a voice emerged speaking in the common galactic tongue, though with an accent none of them recognized. "Attention, Council Fleet. This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Earth Defense Force. You have entered our solar system with hostile intent. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences." Admiral Vorthon's image appeared on the secondary screen, his crystalline form flickering with indignation. "Commander Zephix, open a channel. I will not be threatened by primitives." The channel opened and Vorthon's voice boomed across space. "I am Admiral Vorthon of the Galactic Council. Your species has been selected for integration into our empire. Surrender your vessels and prepare for transport to designated work colonies. Resistance will result in your extinction." There was a long pause before the human admiral responded. When she did, Her voice carried a cold amusement that sent chills through every council member listening. "Admiral, you seem to be under the impression that you're in a position to make demands. Let me clarify something for you. This is our home. You came here uninvited, with enough firepower to glass our planet, and you're threatening our families. We take that very personally. You cannot hope to match our technological superiority," Vorthon declared. "We have conquered 1,000 worlds." "Have you ever conquered a world that conquered back?" came the reply. Before anyone could respond, the human fleet began moving. The Council's sensors, designed to track the graceful movements of civilized warfare, struggled to keep up with the aggressive tactics being displayed. Human ships accelerated at rates that should have turned their crews into paste, then suddenly changed direction in ways that defied understanding of inertia. "Sir," Krill's voice was now openly terrified. "Their ships are pulling over 40 gravities of acceleration." "How are their crews surviving that?" Zephyx didn't have an answer. Nothing in their databases suggested that any biological form could withstand such forces. Either the humans had developed technology far beyond anything the Council possessed, or they were willing to sacrifice their own lives for tactical advantage. Both possibilities were equally terrifying. The first human weapon struck the Council's outer perimeter. Instead of the precise calculated damage that energy weapons would cause, the kinetic projectiles tore through the elegant Council ships like they were made of paper. Entire vessels simply ceased to exist, vaporized by the sheer kinetic force. "Shield status," Zephyx shouted over the chaos. "Shields are useless, sir," his engineering officer replied. "These projectiles are passing right through them. Our shields are designed to deflect energy, not solid matter moving at these speeds." As Zephyx watched his armada begin to crumble around him, he realized that the Galactic Council had made a fundamental error in their assessment. They had assumed that because a species was young, it was weak. They had confused technological sophistication with destructive capability. The humans weren't advanced despite their aggression. They were dangerous because of it. And now, that danger was bearing down on the most powerful fleet the galaxy had ever assembled. The real battle was about to begin. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the UEDS Retribution, her weathered face illuminated by the tactical displays showing the alien armada spread across her solar system. At 53, she had fought in every major conflict Earth had seen in the past 2 decades, but nothing had prepared her for this moment. Humanity's first contact with alien life, and they had come as conquerors. "Ma'am," Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez called from the weapons station. "All railgun batteries are charged and ready. Torpedo tubes are loaded with our new fusion warheads." Chen nodded grimly. The weapons her species had developed weren't elegant or sophisticated by galactic standards, but they had one advantage the aliens clearly hadn't anticipated. They worked through brute force rather than complex technology that could be disrupted or countered. Communications. "Open a channel to all Earth ships," she ordered. The channel crackled open, connecting her to the 8,000 vessels that represented humanity's entire space-capable military. Converted mining ships, retrofitted cargo haulers, purpose-built warships, and even civilian craft that had volunteered for this desperate defense. It wasn't pretty, but it was everything humanity had. "This is Admiral Chen to all vessels. 3 days ago, we detected this alien fleet entering our system. Their communications made their intentions clear. They want to enslave our entire species. They think we're primitives who will roll over because they have more advanced technology. They're about to learn that advancement and lethality aren't the same thing." She paused, looking around her bridge at the men and women who had volunteered to fight for their home. "Every tactical analysis we've run shows we shouldn't stand a chance. Their ships are more advanced, their weapons more sophisticated, their numbers greater. But they made one critical error: they attacked Earth, our home, and humans have a very simple rule about people who threaten our families." The channel filled with grim laughter from across the fleet. "We make them regret it," she continued. "All ships engage at will. Remember, we don't need to match their technology. We just need to break them." "Chen out!" The human fleet spread into attack formations that would have horrified any military academy in the galaxy. Instead of maintaining safe distances and engaging in the precise, calculated warfare that civilized species practiced, the humans charged directly into the alien formation like ancient berserkers. The UEDS Retribution led the charge, its massive railguns opening fire at maximum range. The tungsten slugs, accelerated to 12% the speed of light, crossed the space between fleets in seconds. The aliens' energy shields, designed to deflect particle beams and plasma bursts, offered no protection against solid matter moving at relativistic speeds. The first alien ship to be hit simply vanished in a flash of released energy as the kinetic impact converted both the projectile and a significant portion of the target into plasma. The explosion was visible across the entire battlefield, a stark reminder of the destructive power of human weapons. Aboard the alien command ship, Commander Zephyx watched in horror as his perfectly organized battle formation began to dissolve. "How are they moving so fast?" he demanded. "Those acceleration rates should be fatal to any organic life form." His chief medical officer, a being resembling a cross between a jellyfish and a tree, consulted his instruments. "Commander, I believe I understand. These humans appear to have evolved on what we would classify as a death world. The gravity readings from their planet are nearly twice galactic standard. Their atmospheric pressure is extreme, and the radiation levels from their star should be lethal to most known life forms." "What are you saying?" Zephyx asked, though he feared he already knew the answer. "I'm saying that these beings have evolved to survive conditions that would kill most galactic species within hours. The acceleration forces that should liquefy their organs are apparently within their normal tolerance range. They're not wearing protective suits because they don't need them." Across the battlefield, human tactics continued to confound the alien commanders. Instead of the orderly, predictable patterns that military doctrine called for, human ships moved in seemingly random patterns that made targeting difficult. They used their own disabled vessels as cover, fired through debris fields that should have been impassable, and coordinated attacks in ways that defied standard tactical analysis. Captain Maria Santos, commanding the converted cargo hauler UED's Defiance, epitomized the human approach to warfare. When her ship's main engines were damaged by alien fire, instead of retreating for repairs, she used the ship's industrial cutting lasers to clear a path through the alien formation, her crew manually loading mining explosives into the torpedo tubes. "This is insane," her first officer muttered, as another explosion rocked the ship. "Sanity is a luxury," Santos replied, steering her heavily damaged vessel toward an alien dreadnought. "We don't have time for luxury." The aliens had assumed that once humans saw the futility of resistance, they would surrender. They were discovering that humanity's definition of futility was very different from their own. Human ships continued fighting even when heavily damaged, using ramming attacks when their weapons failed, and somehow maintaining communication and coordination, even as their fleet took horrific casualties. Admiral Vorthan appeared on Commander Zephyx's screen, his crystalline form flickering with agitation. "Commander, your sector is falling apart. Why haven't you contained these primitives?" "Sir," Zephyx replied, his voice strained, "these aren't primitives. They're something else entirely. They're using weapons we banned centuries ago because they're too destructive. They're fighting in formations that prioritize damage over survival. And sir," he paused, checking his instruments again, "they're winning. Impossible. We have superior numbers, superior technology, superior everything." "Superior everything except one thing, sir," came the voice of Sub-Commander Krill. "They want to win more than they want to survive." As if to punctuate her words, a human ship, already listing heavily and venting atmosphere, suddenly changed course and slammed into an alien cruiser at full acceleration. The explosion took out 3 more alien vessels that were too close to the impact. The psychological effect on the alien crews was devastating. In galactic warfare, ships withdrew when damaged to preserve valuable resources and train personnel. The idea of deliberately sacrificing one's ship and crew for tactical advantage was not just foreign to them, it was incomprehensible. On the UEDS Retribution, Admiral Chen watched the tactical display with grim satisfaction. They were losing ships at an alarming rate, but the aliens were losing more. More importantly, the alien formation was beginning to break down as individual ships started pulling back instead of maintaining their positions. "Ma'am," Rodriguez called, "alien fleet is beginning to show signs of disorder. Some ships are breaking formation." Chen smiled for the first time since the battle began. "Fear is a powerful weapon, Rodriguez. They came here expecting to collect slaves, not fight a war. The difference is starting to show." The tide was beginning to turn, but the cost was mounting. Human ships continued to disappear from her screens. each one representing hundreds of lives lost. But for every human ship destroyed, 2 or 3 alien vessels were eliminated, and something even more valuable was being accomplished. The aliens were learning to fear humanity, and in the cold mathematics of warfare, fear was often more powerful than superior technology. The Galactic Council's high command chamber erupted into chaos as reports from the Sol system continued to flood in. Council members from dozens of species filled the massive crystalline amphitheater, their voices creating a cacophony of alarm, disbelief, and growing panic. Supreme Chancellor Thylix, an ancient being whose species had founded the Council 3 millennia ago, called for order with a voice that resonated through both sound and telepathic frequencies. Her towering, ethereal form commanded immediate attention, as silence gradually fell over the assembly. "We are gathered in emergency session," Thylix announced, "to address what appears to be an unprecedented situation developing in the Sol system. Admiral Vorthan, present your report." Vorthan's crystalline form flickered onto the central display, but instead of his usual confident demeanor, stress fractures were visible throughout his structure. "Supreme Chancellor, honored council members, I regret to inform you that Operation Sol Collection has encountered complications." A murmur of concern rippled through the chamber. The Galactic Council had not encountered meaningful military resistance in over 500 years. "The human species has proven to be far more dangerous than our intelligence suggested," Vorthan continued. "In the past 6 hours, we have lost over 2,000 vessels." The chamber fell into stunned silence. Senator Clix, representing the militant Zephyrian Empire, was the first to speak. 2,000 ships? To a species that hasn't even achieved faster than light travel? That's correct, Senator. The humans appear to have been preparing for our arrival. Their entire military has been mobilized and their tactics are... Vorthan paused, searching for words. "Unlike anything in our military databases." Thylix leaned forward, her ancient mind struggling to process this information. "Explain their capabilities, Admiral." "Their weapons technology is primitive but devastatingly effective. They're using kinetic projectiles accelerated to relativistic speeds, weapons banned by every civilized species for good reason. Their ships show no regard for standard safety protocols, pulling acceleration forces that should be lethal to organic life. And most disturbing of all?" Vorthan's form flickered more intensely. "They appear to prefer mutual destruction over surrender." Counselor Vex, a spider-like being from the Andromeda sector, clicked her mandibles in agitation. "Impossible. No species can maintain unit cohesion in the face of certain death. It goes against every survival instinct evolution produces." "I would have agreed with you 12 hours ago," Vorthan replied, "but I've watched human vessels deliberately ram our ships when their weapons failed. I've seen damaged craft use themselves as guided missiles rather than retreat for repairs. Their casualties are enormous, but they're inflicting disproportionate damage in return." The chamber buzzed with alarmed conversation. This scenario was outside every contingency the Council had planned for. Their expansion had always relied on overwhelming technological superiority that convinced enemy species to surrender rather than face annihilation. "Supreme Chancellor, Thylix accessed the Council's vast database of conquered species. In 3,000 years of expansion, they had encountered aggressive species before, but aggression had always been paired with limited intelligence or technological capability. The combination of technological competence, tactical innovation, and suicidal determination that the humans displayed was unprecedented. "Show us their planet," Thylix commanded. The display shifted to show Earth as recorded by the Council's advanced scouts. What appeared on screen caused another wave of shocked murmurs throughout the chamber. Earth was a roiling, violent world of extreme weather patterns, massive tectonic activity, and atmospheric conditions that would be considered hostile by galactic standards. Dr. Zeffel, the Council's chief xenobiologist, analyzed the data in real time. "Supreme Chancellor, this explains their capabilities. This planet is what we would classify as a class the way through Deathworld. The gravity is 2.3 times galactic standard. The atmospheric pressure would crush most of our species. The radiation from their star is intense enough to cause genetic damage to most known life forms, and the planet itself is geologically active to a degree we've never encountered." "What are you suggesting, Doctor?" Thylix asked, though she suspected she already knew. "I'm suggesting that these humans didn't develop their aggressive tendencies despite their environment. They developed them because of it. Every day on that planet is a battle for survival against conditions that would kill most galactic species within hours. They haven't evolved to be peaceful because peace means death on their world. The implications sank in across the chamber. The Council had always categorized worlds by their hostility level, avoiding anything above Class V as too dangerous for colonization. They had never considered that life might actually thrive in such extreme conditions, or what kind of species such an environment might produce. Senator Korth, representing the pacifist Deltan Confederation, raised a trembling appendage. If this is true, if they're products of such an extreme environment, what does that mean for our expansion policies? Before anyone could answer, another urgent transmission arrived from the Sol system. The image of Commander Zephyx appeared, his bridge clearly in the midst of battle. Emergency lighting cast eerie shadows across his scaled features as explosions flashed in the background. "High Command," Zephyx reported, his voice strained. "The situation has deteriorated further. The humans have begun using what appear to be nuclear weapons as ship-to-ship missiles. They're converting their own mining equipment into weapon systems and—" He paused as another explosion rocked his ship. "They've begun broadcasting something across all communication frequencies." "What are they broadcasting?" Thylix demanded. "Music, Supreme Chancellor." "They're fighting to music." The chamber fell silent. Of all the reports they had received, this might have been the most disturbing. The idea of any species finding entertainment value in combat was so alien to galactic civilization that it defied comprehension. "Put it through," Thylix ordered. The chamber's audio systems came to life with a driving, aggressive rhythm unlike anything in the galactic musical database. The beat was primal, energizing, and somehow perfectly synchronized with the reports of human tactical movements they were receiving. "They're enjoying this," Counselor Vex whispered, her voice barely audible. "They're actually enjoying the battle." Admiral Vorthan's form appeared more fractured than before. "Supreme Chancellor, I request immediate reinforcement of an additional 50,000 vessels. The humans must be stopped before they escape their system." "Escape?" Senator Clix's voice rose in alarm. "Are you suggesting they might develop interstellar capability?" "Senator, based on what I've observed of their adaptability and innovation under pressure, I believe it's inevitable. And when they do—" Vorthan paused, considering the implications. "When they do, they won't be coming as explorers or traders. They'll be coming as conquerors." The chamber erupted in panicked discussion. The idea of a species like humanity gaining access to the galaxy was a nightmare scenario beyond anything the Council had ever considered. Supreme Chancellor Thylix raised her hand for silence. "Admiral Vorthan, your assessment. Can they be contained?" "At current loss rates, my fleet will be destroyed within 18 hours. These humans aren't just fighting, they're learning. Their tactics are evolving in real time, and they're adapting to our weapons and strategies faster than we can counter them. Supreme Chancellor, I believe we may have awakened something that should have been left alone." As if to emphasize his words, the transmission was suddenly filled with the sound of human laughter. Not the peaceful amusement of civilized beings, but the fierce joy of warriors in battle. The Council was beginning to realize they hadn't just miscalculated the human threat level. They had fundamentally misunderstood what humans were, and now the most powerful military force in the galaxy was learning to fear a species that found joy in the very thing that terrified every other civilization. The humans weren't just defending their world, they were enjoying it. Commander Wraith of the UED's Vengeance had been born in the asteroid mining colonies of the outer system, where a single equipment failure meant death for everyone aboard. She understood better than most that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their weapons or their technology. It was their absolute refusal to accept defeat as long as they still drew breath. Now, as she watched the alien fleet's formation begin to collapse under the relentless human assault, she knew the real test was about to begin. The aliens were adapting, learning from their mistakes, and their superior numbers were starting to tell. "Captain," her tactical officer called out, "we're receiving new intelligence from Fleet Command. The aliens are regrouping near Jupiter's orbit. They're forming a defensive line." Wraith studied the tactical display. The alien commanders had finally stopped treating this as a simple collection operation and started fighting like they were in a real war. The scattered formation that had made them easy targets was being replaced by a disciplined defensive perimeter designed to maximize their technological advantages. "They're learning," she muttered. "Send a message to Admiral Chen. Tell her the honeymoon's over." Across the solar system, human commanders were reaching the same conclusion. The initial shock value of their aggressive tactics was wearing off, and the aliens were beginning to respond with the calculated precision that had made them masters of the galaxy. Admiral Chen studied the updated battle reports aboard the Retribution. Human losses were mounting faster than she had hoped. They had destroyed nearly 4,000 alien vessels, but at the cost of almost half their own fleet. The mathematics were brutal but clear. Humanity was running out of ships faster than the aliens were. "Ma'am," Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez reported grimly, "we're down to 4,200 operational vessels. At current loss rates, we'll be combat ineffective within 6 hours." Chen nodded. She had known from the beginning that this was a race against time. The question wasn't whether humanity could win a prolonged war against an enemy with superior technology and numbers they couldn't. The question was whether they could make the aliens decide that conquering Earth wasn't worth the cost. "Open a channel to all ship commanders," she ordered. "Priority Alpha." Within minutes, the faces of humanity's surviving ship commanders filled her screen. They were a mix of military officers, merchant marine captains, and civilian volunteers. What they all shared was the grim determination of people with nothing left to lose. "Listen up," Chen began. "Intelligence indicates the aliens are regrouping for a final push. They've learned from our initial attacks and they're adapting their tactics. We've hurt them badly, but they still have numerical superiority." Captain Harrison of the UED's Dauntless, his ship listing heavily from battle damage, spoke up. "What are our orders, Admiral?" Chen paused, considering her words carefully. What she was about to propose went against every principle of sound military strategy. But sound strategy wouldn't save humanity now. "We're going to do something the aliens won't expect," she said. "We're going to attack their formation directly. No hit-and-run tactics, no strategic withdrawal. We're going to charge straight into their defensive line and break it through sheer audacity." The silence that followed was telling. Even by human standards, the plan was suicidal. Commander Wraith was the first to speak. "Admiral, with respect, that's exactly what they'll be expecting us to do. They've seen our aggressive tendencies. They'll be ready for a frontal assault." "No," Chen replied, a cold smile crossing her face. "They'll be ready for a frontal assault by a normal military force. They won't be ready for what we're actually going to do." She activated the tactical display, showing the alien defensive formation near Jupiter. "Look at their positioning. They've arranged themselves in a perfect defensive grid, designed to provide overlapping fields of fire and mutual support. It's textbook galactic military doctrine, which makes it predictable," she continued. "They're thinking like military professionals. But we're not just a military force. We're humans defending our home. And humans don't follow textbooks when their families are threatened." Captain Santos, her cargo hauler still somehow operational despite massive damage, laughed grimly. "I think I see what you're getting at, Admiral. They're expecting a military engagement. But we're not just military." "Exactly," Chen confirmed. "Every civilian ship, every converted freighter, every mining vessel, they're all going to charge that formation simultaneously. Not in formation, not following any recognizable tactical doctrine. We're going to hit them with pure chaos." The plan that emerged over the next hour would have horrified any military academy in the galaxy. Instead of organized battle formations, humanity would attack in a massive swarm of individual ships, each one acting independently according to their commander's instincts. No two ships would follow the same approach vector, use the same tactics, or even target the same enemy vessels. Meanwhile, aboard the alien command vessel, Commander Zephyx was finally beginning to feel confident about their tactical position. The human fleet had been reduced to manageable numbers, and the defensive formation his strategists had designed would force the humans to attack into concentrated firepower. "Sir," Sub-Commander Krill reported, "human fleet is beginning to move. They appear to be forming up for a mass assault." Zephyx nodded in satisfaction. "Finally, they're going to fight like civilized beings. All weapons ready. Target their formation leaders and watch their attack collapse." But as the human fleet approached, it became clear that something was very wrong. Instead of the organized formation Zephyx expected, the human ships were moving in what appeared to be complete chaos. No two vessels were following the same approach pattern, and there were no discernible formation leaders to target. "What are they doing?" Zephyx demanded, his tactical displays struggling to track the seemingly random movements of the human fleet. "Sir, I don't think they have a formation," Krill replied, her voice confused. "Each ship appears to be operating independently." This was outside every tactical scenario the alien commanders had trained for. Military doctrine assumed that attacking forces would coordinate their efforts to maximize effectiveness. The idea of hundreds of ships attacking simultaneously without coordination was not just inefficient, it should have been impossible to execute, but humans had never read Galactic military doctrine. The first wave of human ships hit the alien defensive line like a chaotic storm. Mining ships with improvised weapons attacked alongside military vessels. Civilian freighters converted into guided missiles slammed into alien cruisers. Individual human commanders made tactical decisions based on instinct, opportunity, and pure desperation. The aliens' carefully coordinated defensive fire designed to target organized formations proved nearly useless against the swarm of individual targets approaching from dozens of different vectors. Their targeting systems, optimized for predictable tactical movements, couldn't lock onto ships that changed course randomly every few seconds. Commander Wraith dove her ship through a gap in the alien formation that existed for exactly 3 seconds before disappearing again. Her improvised tactics weren't sophisticated, but they were unpredictable. She fired her weapons at targets of opportunity, rammed alien vessels when her guns failed, and somehow managed to stay alive through pure audacity. "This is insane," her weapons officer shouted over the chaos. "Sanity is overrated," Wraith replied, steering toward another alien ship. "Besides, it's working." And it was working. The alien formation, designed to withstand organized military assault, was coming apart under the chaotic human attack. Individual alien ships found themselves isolated, surrounded by human vessels that appeared and disappeared without warning, attacking from unexpected angles with weapons that shouldn't have been effective but somehow were. Admiral Vorthon watched his defensive line collapse with growing horror. "How is this possible?" he demanded.
"They have no coordination, no strategy, no discipline."
His tactical advisor, a being whose species had perfected military science over millennia, could only stare at the displays in bewilderment. "Sir, I believe that's exactly why it's working. Our defenses are designed to counter organized attacks. This isn't organized. It's chaos." But it wasn't just chaos, it was human chaos. And humanity had been perfecting the art of beautiful, effective chaos for millennia. The breaking point came when Captain Elena Vasquez, commanding the converted mining ship UED's Prospector, made a decision that would echo through galactic history. Her vessel was dying around her, life support failing, weapons exhausted, but she was still moving under power. Ahead of her loomed the alien flagship, Admiral Vorthon's massive crystalline dreadnought that served as the command center for the entire invasion force. "Captain," her engineering officer called over the comm, his voice strained. "Reactors going critical. We have maybe 2 minutes before containment failure." Vasquez looked at the alien flagship through her cracked view screen. The massive vessel was beautiful in its own way, all flowing curves and elegant crystalline structures that caught and reflected light like a living jewel. It was also completely defenseless at this moment, its weapons focused on other targets in the chaotic battle swirling around them. She keyed her ship's communications to the emergency frequency used by all human vessels. "This is Captain Vasquez aboard the Prospector. My reactor's going critical and I'm on a collision course with the alien command ship. Tell my family I love them, and tell Earth that Elena Vasquez died free." Before anyone could respond, she cut the channel and pushed her dying ship's engines to maximum power. Admiral Chen heard the transmission aboard the Retribution and felt her heart clench. She had known Elena for 15 years, had served with her during the Titan colony crisis. But there was no time for grief, not yet. All ships, she broadcast. "Cover the Prospector's approach. Give her a clear run." Across the battlefield, human vessels that had been locked in individual duels suddenly shifted their focus. Every ship within range began concentrating fire on the alien vessels between Elena's ship and the enemy flagship. It was a desperate, coordinated effort born not from tactical doctrine but from the very human refusal to let a comrade die alone. Commander Zephyx watched the human mining vessel approach his flagship with growing alarm, Intercept that ship, he ordered. All defensive batteries target the mining vessel. But the concentrated fire from the other human ships was making that impossible. Every time one of his defensive systems locked onto the approaching vessel, human fire would disable it. It was as if the entire human fleet had suddenly decided that protecting this one dying ship was more important than their own survival. "Sir," Krill reported, her voice tight with panic. "That ship's reactor signature suggests it's going to explode. They're using it as a guided missile." Zafix felt his blood freeze. The concept was so alien to civilized warfare that he almost couldn't process it. No rational being would sacrifice themselves and their vessel for such minimal tactical gain. But as he was learning, humans weren't entirely rational by galactic standards. The prospector struck Admiral Vorthan's flagship amidships at full velocity. Elena's reactor chose that exact moment to undergo catastrophic failure. The explosion that followed was visible from Earth's surface, a brief new star that outshone everything else in the solar system for nearly 30 seconds. When the light faded, Admiral Vorthan's flagship was gone. Not damaged, not disabled. Simply gone, along with the entire command structure of the alien invasion force. The psychological impact on the alien fleet was immediate and devastating. For 3,000 years, no enemy had ever successfully struck at a Council command vessel. The idea that a primitive mining ship could destroy the most advanced dreadnought in their fleet was beyond their ability to comprehend. "Admiral," Chen felt tears streaming down her face as she watched the explosion fade. But her voice was steady as she addressed her remaining fleet. "Elena Vasquez just proved something important to our alien friends. She proved that every human ship in this system is a potential weapon of mass destruction. Every one of us is willing to die to protect our home. And every one of us can take a lot of aliens with us when we go." The alien fleet was already beginning to show signs of panic. Without their command ship and with Admiral Vorthan's death confirmed, individual alien captains were making their own decisions about whether continuing this fight was worth the risk. Commander Zefix, now the senior surviving alien officer, tried to restore order to his forces. All ships maintain formation. "The humans are down to less than 2,000 vessels. We can still win this." But his words rang hollow. The alien crews had watched their most powerful ship destroyed by what they considered a garbage scow. They had seen their technological superiority mean nothing against an enemy willing to turn every ship into a guided missile. The mathematics of the battle no longer mattered. The humans had demonstrated that they could make the cost of victory unacceptably high. Back in the Galactic Council chambers, Supreme Chancellor Thylix watched the destruction of Vorthan's flagship with growing horror. The reports coming in from Sol System painted a picture of warfare unlike anything in their recorded history. "How many ships have we lost?" she asked, though she dreaded the answer. Dr. Zeffel consulted his instruments with shaking appendages. 6,700 vessels destroyed or disabled, Supreme Chancellor. Nearly 60% of our invasion force. And the humans? Approximately 6,000 ships lost. But Chancellor, they're not stopping. Even their damaged vessels continue fighting. We're observing ships with massive hull breaches still engaging our forces. The chamber buzzed with panicked conversation. Losing ships was one thing. Every military force accepted casualties. But losing them to an enemy that refused to follow any recognizable pattern of warfare was terrifying in ways the Council couldn't adequately express. Senator Klix rose from his position, his militant species warrior culture giving him insight the others lacked. "Supreme Chancellor, I request permission to address the Assembly." "Granted, Senator." "Honored Council members, we are witnessing something unprecedented. These humans aren't just defending their territory. They're demonstrating a form of warfare that makes conventional military doctrine irrelevant. Every ship in their fleet is both a weapon and a potential suicide weapon. Every engagement carries the risk of catastrophic loss." He paused, his words carrying weight that came from generations of military tradition. "More importantly, they're showing no signs of breaking. A rational enemy would have surrendered after losing half their forces. The humans are down to their last 2,000 ships and they're still attacking. What are you suggesting, Senator?" Thylix asked, though she suspected she knew. "I'm suggesting that we're not fighting a military force, Supreme Chancellor. We're fighting an entire species that has chosen death before dishonor, and that's not a fight we can win through conventional means." As if to prove his point, another urgent transmission arrived from the Sol System. Commander Zefix's image appeared, his ship clearly in the final stages of battle damage. "High Command," he reported, his voice barely controlled. "The humans are broadcasting again. They're singing." "Singing," Thylix repeated. "Yes, Supreme Chancellor. They're singing songs about death and glory while they die. And the ones who are listening to their comrades sing these death songs aren't retreating. They're fighting harder." The transmission filled with the sound of human voices raised in harmony, singing words that needed no translation. The melody spoke of sacrifice, of protecting what you love, of choosing how you die when you can't choose how you live. Counselor Vex's mandibles clicked in distress. They're turning their deaths into inspiration for the survivors. Each ship they lose makes the remaining ones more dangerous, not less. The Council was beginning to understand that they hadn't just underestimated human military capability. They had fundamentally misunderstood what humans were. This wasn't a species that could be conquered through conventional warfare. This was a species that had turned warfare itself into an art form, and death into a weapon. And they were running out of time to stop them. Dr. Sarah Morrison stood in the observation deck of Luna Station, watching the distant flashes of light that marked the ongoing battle for humanity's survival. As Earth's leading xenobiologist, she had been studying the intercepted alien communications for the past 18 hours, and what she had discovered filled her with both hope and terror. "Dr. Morrison," came a voice from behind her. She turned to see General Patterson, the grizzled commander of Earth's ground-based defenses. "We need your report on alien psychology. Admiral Chen needs to know if they're going to break." Morrison gestured to the holographic displays surrounding her workstation. "General, I've been analyzing their communication patterns, their tactical decisions, their apparent decision-making processes. What I've found is both encouraging and deeply disturbing." She activated a series of recordings showing alien transmissions from throughout the battle. "The aliens appear to operate under a completely different paradigm than we do. Their entire civilization is built around what we would call rational decision-making. They calculate odds, minimize risks, and always choose the most efficient path to their objectives." "That sounds like good military thinking," Patterson observed. "It would be, if they were fighting other aliens," Morrison replied. "But we're not rational by their standards. Look at this." She highlighted a communication between alien ships showing their bewilderment at human tactics. "They literally cannot understand why we continue fighting when the mathematical odds are against us. To them, our behavior is not just irrational, it's incomprehensible." She pulled up another display showing human casualty rates versus alien psychological profiles. "General, they're not just losing ships, they're losing the will to fight. Every time we do something they consider impossible, like ramming attacks or fighting with critical system failures, it damages their confidence more than our weapons damage their hulls." Patterson studied the data with growing interest. "So you're saying fear is our best weapon?" "Not fear exactly," Morrison corrected. "Uncertainty. These beings have spent millennia perfecting the art of calculated warfare. They know how to fight enemies who follow predictable patterns. But we don't follow patterns. We adapt, improvise, and do things that don't appear in any military manual." Meanwhile, in the depths of space, the battle was entering its final phase. Admiral Chen commanded the remaining 800 human vessels from the bridge of the heavily damaged Retribution. Her fleet was outnumbered 6-1 by the surviving alien forces, but those numbers no longer told the whole story. "Ma'am," Rodriguez reported, "alien fleet formation is starting to show gaps. Several ships are maintaining distance from our forces instead of closing to optimal weapons range." Chen nodded grimly. "They're learning to fear us. The question is whether they'll learn fast enough." Commander Zefix was indeed learning to fear humanity, but he was also learning something else: respect. The species he had initially dismissed as primitives had fought his technologically superior force to a standstill through nothing but courage, ingenuity, and an absolute refusal to surrender. "Sir," Krill reported, "we're receiving priority communications from 17 of our ship commanders. They're requesting permission to withdraw from the engagement zone." Zefix felt his heart sink. Military discipline was breaking down among his forces. The alien crews, accustomed to fighting enemies who followed rational tactical doctrine, were beginning to panic in the face of human unpredictability. "Denied," he replied firmly. "We still have numerical superiority. If we maintain formation and fight defensively, we can wear them down. But even as he spoke the words, Zephyx knew they were hollow. The humans had already demonstrated their willingness to trade ship for ship, life for life, until the very last vessel was destroyed. And they were making that trade at favorable rates. On Earth's surface, President Maria Gonzalez watched the battle reports with a mixture of pride and heartbreak. The species' first contact with alien life was turning into its greatest military victory and its greatest tragedy simultaneously. Madam President, her aide reported, we're receiving communications from several Earth colonies throughout the system. They're requesting permission to join the battle. Gonzalez felt a surge of fierce pride. Even facing extinction, humanity's response was to fight harder, not surrender. Tell them to maintain defensive positions. We can't risk the alien ships breaking through to threaten the colonies. But even as she spoke, she knew that if Earth fell, those colonies would fight too. It was the human way. Never surrender, never stop fighting. Never accept defeat as long as breath remained in their bodies. Back in the Galactic Council chambers, Supreme Chancellor Thylix was facing the collapse of everything the Council represented. The reports from Sol System painted a picture of warfare that challenged every assumption about civilized behavior. Supreme Chancellor, Senator Clix announced, I am formally requesting an emergency vote on immediate withdrawal from the Sol System. The chamber erupted in shocked discussion. No Council operation had ever been abandoned due to enemy resistance. Senator, Councillor Vex protested, we cannot allow a primitive species to defy Council authority. The precedent would be catastrophic for our expansion policies. With respect, Councillor, Clix replied, these are not primitives. They are something far more dangerous. They are a species that has learned to excel at warfare, not despite living on a death world, but because of it. And they have just demonstrated that technological superiority means nothing against absolute determination. Dr. Zeffel had been analyzing the human homeworld throughout the crisis, and his findings supported Clix's assessment. Supreme Chancellor, I've completed my analysis of Earth's geological and biological history. This planet has experienced 5 major extinction events, each one eliminating most life forms. The species that survived and thrived were those that developed extreme adaptability and aggressive survival instincts. He activated a display showing Earth's evolutionary timeline. Humans are the product of nearly 4 billion years of survival pressure that would have eliminated most species we know. They haven't just adapted to their hostile world, they've learned to use hostility as a tool. What are you suggesting, Doctor? Thylix asked. I'm suggesting that we may have encountered something unprecedented in galactic history, a species that becomes more dangerous when threatened, not less. Every pressure we apply makes them stronger, more creative, more determined. As if to prove his point, a new transmission arrived from Commander Zephyx. His image showed a being pushed to the edge of exhaustion, his ship sparking and damaged around him. High Command, he reported. The humans have begun a new tactic. They're using their damaged ships as decoys, hiding functional vessels behind debris fields, and coordinating attacks through methods we cannot monitor or predict. Explain, Thylix demanded. They appear to be communicating through music, Supreme Chancellor. They're encoding tactical information in their battle songs. We can hear the transmissions, but we cannot interpret them because we don't understand the cultural context. Thylix felt something she had never experienced in her 3,000-year lifespan, genuine fear. Are you telling me they've developed an unbreakable communication system in the middle of battle? Yes, Supreme Chancellor. They're singing instructions to each other while they fight, and the songs are making them fight harder, not softer. The council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. They weren't just facing a military force. They were facing a culture that had turned warfare into both science and art, where every battle made them more effective rather than less. Senator Clix rose again, his warrior's instincts finally recognizing what they were truly facing. Supreme Chancellor, I withdraw my request for an emergency vote, Senator. Because it's too late for withdrawal to matter, he said grimly. Whether we win or lose this battle, we've already awakened something that will change the galaxy forever. The humans now know we exist. They know where we came from, and they've just learned that they can fight us successfully. The terrible truth was becoming clear to everyone in the chamber. They had come to Sol System to capture slaves and had instead created an enemy unlike any the galaxy had ever known. And now that enemy knew they were vulnerable. The end came not with a massive explosion or a final desperate charge, but with something the aliens had never encountered in 3 millennia of conquest: a choice between victory and survival. Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of the Retribution, now one of only 200 human vessels still combat-capable, facing the remaining 3,000 alien ships. The mathematics were brutal and absolute. Even if every remaining human ship took out 15 enemy vessels, the aliens would still have numerical superiority. But mathematics had never been humanity's strong suit. "Ma'am," Rodriguez reported, his voice steady despite the hopelessness of their situation, "we're receiving a transmission from the alien commander. He's requesting a conference." Chen felt her eyebrows rise. In 12 hours of brutal combat, the aliens had never attempted negotiation. "Put him through." Commander Zefix's image appeared on the main screen, his reptilian features showing exhaustion and something that might have been respect. "Admiral Chen, I am Commander Zefix of the Galactic Council Defense Force. I request permission to speak with you under standard galactic truce protocols. This is Admiral Chen. I accept your request for parley." "Commander, speak your piece." Zefix paused, choosing his words carefully. "Admiral, you and your forces have fought with a courage that commands respect throughout the galaxy. But surely you must see that continued resistance is futile. We still outnumber you 15 to 1. Your ships are damaged, your ammunition depleted, your forces exhausted." Chen smiled coldly. "Commander, let me explain something about humans. We don't surrender because the odds are bad. We fight harder. But why?" Zefix asked, genuine confusion in his voice. "Your species will survive in our service. Your world will be preserved. Your culture will be maintained. Why choose extinction over acceptance?" "Because," Chen replied, her voice carrying across space to every human and alien vessel in the system, "we'd rather die free than live as slaves. And because we've learned something important about you in the past 12 hours. What have you learned? We've learned that you can be beaten. Your ships can be destroyed, your tactics can be countered, and your will can be broken. Most importantly, we've learned that you're not gods. You're just another species with better technology. And technology can be captured, reverse-engineered, and improved upon." The implications of her words sent a chill through every alien crew listening. She wasn't just talking about this battle. She was talking about the future. Commander Zefix felt the weight of his species' greatest fear settling upon him. "Admiral, surely you understand that continued resistance will only result in the complete destruction of your fleet?" "Maybe," Chen agreed. "But it will also result in the destruction of most of your fleet. And Commander, here's something for you to consider. What happens when word gets back to Earth that we held the mighty Galactic Council to a near standstill? What happens when our shipyards start working around the clock to build vessels based on the technology we've salvaged from your wrecks? What happens when a species that just learned interstellar warfare is possible decides to come calling on your worlds?" The silence that followed was deafening. Every alien in the system was suddenly considering the same terrifying possibility. Humanity with galactic technology and their own aggressive instincts. In the council chambers, Supreme Chancellor Thylix listened to the exchange with growing dread. The human admiral wasn't just negotiating, she was issuing a threat that extended far beyond this single battle. "She's right," Senator Click said quietly. "Even if we destroy every human ship in this system, we cannot destroy the knowledge they now possess. They know we exist, they know we can be fought, and they've captured enough of our technology to begin reverse engineering it." Dr. Zeffel was analyzing the battle data with increasing alarm. "Supreme Chancellor, the humans have been systematically targeting our most advanced systems throughout the battle. They haven't just been fighting for survival. They've been learning. Every ship they've destroyed has taught them more about our capabilities." "What are you saying, Doctor?" "I'm saying that win or lose, this battle has already accomplished something unprecedented. It has given a Deathworld species the tools and knowledge they need to become a galactic power." Counselor Vex clicked her mandibles in distress. "But they're still primitive. Even with our technology, it would take them decades to become a threat to the wider galaxy." "Respectfully, Counselor," Dr. Zeffel replied, "you're thinking like a civilized being. Civilized species take decades to develop new technologies because we test them carefully, ensure they're safe, and integrate them slowly into our existing systems. But these humans have just demonstrated that they don't prioritize safety over effectiveness." The truth was becoming clear to the Council. They hadn't just attacked a primitive species. They had accidentally fast-tracked a potential rival's technological development by centuries. Back in the Sol system, Admiral Chen was preparing for what she knew would be her fleet's final battle. But she had one more card to play. All remaining ships, she broadcast on the general frequency, prepare for Operation Last Light. You know what that means. Commander Zephyx watched his instruments with growing horror as every remaining human vessel began showing signs of reactor destabilization. What are they doing? His science officer checked and rechecked his readings. Sir, every human ship appears to be deliberately overloading their power systems. They're turning their entire fleet into fusion bombs. The psychological impact was immediate and devastating. The alien crews had spent 12 hours learning to fear individual human ships that might ram them or explode during close combat. Now they were facing the prospect of 200 simultaneous fusion explosions in the middle of their fleet formation. How many of our ships would survive that? Zephyx asked quietly. Perhaps 300, sir. Maybe fewer. Zephyx felt the weight of command crushing down upon him. He could win this battle, but at a cost that would leave his fleet unable to defend against any follow-up human attack, and the humans had made it clear that follow-up attacks were inevitable. He opened a channel to Admiral Chen. Admiral, what are your terms? Chen's smile was predatory. Unconditional withdrawal from our system, immediate release of all captured human personnel and vessels, and formal recognition of human territorial sovereignty over the Sol system. And if we refuse? Then in about 60 seconds you'll learn firsthand what happens when 200 fusion reactors go critical, simultaneously in the middle of your fleet. Your choice, Commander. The silence stretched for nearly 30 seconds before Zephyx made the decision that would echo through galactic history. I accept your terms, Admiral. We will withdraw immediately. As the alien fleet began its retreat, gathering their damaged vessels and dead, Admiral Chen allowed herself a moment of quiet satisfaction. Humanity had won its first interstellar war not through superior technology or numbers, but through something far more powerful, the absolute refusal to accept defeat. But even as she watched the alien ships disappear into hyperspace, she knew this was just the beginning. The galaxy now knew that Earth existed, that humans could fight, and that they possessed the captured technology to become a spacefaring civilization. What the galaxy didn't yet understand was that they had just given humanity the greatest gift possible, an enemy to unite against and the tools to reach the stars. Commander. Zephyx's final report to the Galactic Council was brief and stark. Mission failed. Human species shows signs of extreme technological adaptability and suicidal combat doctrine. Recommend immediate reclassification as Class A galactic threat. They will be back. Supreme Chancellor Thylix read the report with growing dread. In trying to capture a primitive species for slave labor, the Galactic Council had instead created the one thing they feared most, a rival civilization with nothing to lose and everything to gain. The humans were coming to the galaxy, and they were bringing their Deathworld instincts with them. 6 months later, the first human ships began appearing on the edge of known space. They weren't exploration vessels or trade ships. They were warships, built with a combination of human engineering and captured alien technology, crewed by beings who had learned that the galaxy was full of enemies and that the best defense was a good offense. The Galactic Council's greatest blunder had awakened the Deathworlders, and the galaxy would never be the same.